Tennessee, and I promised you guys an update on his status today. When I last gave his sort of impromptu update yesterday, he's worse. He's not in any pain. He is he's breathing a bit faster, about 26 respirations per minute, up from I'd say about 16. His SpO2, his oxygen saturation, is in the 60s. So before that, maybe yesterday, even he was in the upper 90s, middle to upper 90s. So he's decompensating. He really hasn't been eating or drinking. I don't think he's had anything today. I don't think my mom gave him anything. My mom went out to go get him some wine. He does like wine. The nurse came today, Katrina came today, and she said, "Well, he's not looking good. He's looking like, maybe next 24 hours." Which, frankly, after yesterday's update, I came inside and he looked, in addition to being jaundiced, very yellow, he looked a little bit gray to my eye. And the nurse said, "Don't even bother changing him at this point because it causes him discomfort." I said, "Don't bother, don't bother. Just keep him comfortable." And so that's what we intend to do. My mom, the nurse told mom she said, "Just get him whatever he might like the taste of, something to drink, whether it's wine or whatever." And I said, "Dan still likes wine?" And my mom said, "Is the Pope Catholic?" I said, "Okay, well, fair question." Um, so anyway, and we both, of course, remembered Proverbs 31, where it says, "Give strong drink to one who is perishing, and wine to those in bitter distress." But, um, thanks for being here. It just, the list, folks, with all your love. And, I got a bit emotional yesterday because of all the love you showed my brother. And the burden that I felt was one of love. Like, it's not a, I'm not used to feeling such a great burden of love. And there is a burden. Don't try to play that off. I do owe you love. I owe you love from my family. I owe you love from Dan. Of course, for love to be true, it must be freely given. Um, but there's also, gratitude is it's a burden that I gladly bear. And Dan as well. I feel a burden to carry his spirit forward, and it's a burden I gladly bear. His burden is easy. Um, so anyway, just for you, those of you who may just be catching up, he had a stroke last week, and his right side is not very useful, shall we say. Um, his swallowing has gotten markedly less effective. His appetite and thirst has gone down dramatically over the last 24 to 48 hours. Yesterday was 4 ounces. The day before was maybe 24 ounces of fluid, and today nothing so far. One good thing that happened, and I see all your prayers and your comments, and I want to thank you for that. And I want to give you a quick update, and I'll start taking questions. Okay, so one good thing that came out of yesterday, one of many good things. I cannot possibly reply to all of your questions and comments, but one good thing that came out of it was Dan dated a woman back in like 2010, 2011 for a fairly short time. The woman had a son named Tyler, and um, he was maybe 10 around that time, and Dan took him under his wing. Dan and the boy's mom stopped dating, but Dan viewed Tyler as his son, and Tyler viewed Dan as his father. Dan doesn't have children, and They developed their friendship. They went on trips together. They hung out together. They did all sorts of stuff. They went to the shooting range together. They did all kinds of stuff that dads and sons would do. Tyler told us. So the upshot of this is Tyler knew, because I had looked through Dan's texts and texted people back, and I knew I needed to text certain people whether they had texted Dan or not. And Tyler was right at the top, but he didn't text me back on Dan's phone. He didn't contact my phone, and I knew that it was almost certainly because he was having trouble processing the great loss that was on the horizon. So Tyler got the notification that Dr. Dan was live yesterday, and he saw it and he watched it and he contacted me afterwards. So Tyler went to NYU Film School for a while, and he came over and he said, "Listen, I want to help put together some sort of memorial for Dan, a pictorial, a video memorial." And so what I've done is I've set up a Google Drive folder, and because the link is a bit unwieldy, I just want to share it with you now, and I might be able to share it underneath this for folks to contribute and to see photographs. And I don't know how we're going to do this, but it was Tyler's idea. And so the link is bit.ly, bit.ly / Bachmann, BOCKMANN, bit.ly, bit.ly / Bachmann. And that's the shortcut to the Google Drive, where we'll be putting some photographs, videos, whatever friends have. And eventually, Tyler, I think, might put together a video as well. So that's Tyler. It was great to see Tyler. We just stepped out of the apartment and gave him whatever time he wanted to say goodbye to the man who was like his father. It's just amazing how many wonderful people come out of the woodwork for this. And that is the one thing I will say is, despite all this pain and the loss, it just further highlights the contributions Dan has made. Listen, he was my brother. I took him for granted, like you probably take all your family for granted. I loved him, and ever since 2020, I realized there was probably a clock ticking more overtly than I might have otherwise sensed. I always think of my older brother as eternal, but I realize, and so the contrast between what he was able to focus on these last few years and the attitude he was able to maintain right up till the end here. There he is. I'm looking at him right now. He's asleep. Once in a while, he'll have some expressions that cross his face that tell me he's either dreaming or, as my mom says, he's seeing angels, maybe, because he'll break out into a grin. And so it's a very poignant moment, and I know that as he lived, he wants me to share his moments as he dies. He's not in pain. He's not in discomfort. We're caring for him. A few more points. I read some of the comments yesterday, and they're wonderful. Thank you. One of the things I read was from a man who said, "Hey, this guy, I've been dealing with depression, and I'm having trouble changing out of my dirty underwear on a regular basis, and this guy Dan wants you to put cologne on him." He's like, inspirational. And I just want to say, listen, I hear you and I see you, and if you've been struggling, the one who wrote this, and on behalf of everybody else who is struggling with depression, I just want to say somebody loves you, and don't give up. Don't give up. I myself have struggled with depression a long time, and I'm sure Dan has been through it, and just don't give up, okay? Find community. That's my big push, community. church, if you need a built-in community. Um, Another man and wife came over yesterday, good friends of Dan's. The man had given Dan haircuts for a long time for free. Um, and they came over after having driven 3,800 miles. And the woman very graciously and very, I think, astutely told Dan, "Hey, listen, Dan, don't hang on for our account. Um, you have permission to go, man. Just go when you need to." And I thought that was actually quite a beautiful thing to say. Wonderful people. Dan, also, I wanted to mention this. Dan frequently referred to himself and conceptualized himself as what he called a pain Sherpa, which I think is a great word picture. A pain Sherpa. You know, a Sherpa is someone who assists with the baggage when ascending, typically in the Himalayas, a high mountain like Mount Everest is super high, and none of us of our own devices would be expected to climb such a peak without help. And that to me is life. And Dan viewed that as, pain can seem overwhelming, and he viewed himself as someone called, perhaps, to help others bear their pain and get them through it. And I think that's a great analogy. And as I pondered this yesterday, I realized that he may be serving in much more of a Sherpa role than just pain, because daily living for so many, including those of you who may suffer from depression, in my own experience as a clinician, I see an awful lot of even young people dealing with depression and anxiety. I think Dan, in some ways, is a little bit of a life Sherpa, and I don't want to sell him too hard here, but I'm struggling to figure out exactly what it is that attracted his entire Panda family to him, and I think it was his attitude. Dan, don't be mistaken. Dan was a man of great violence. It may come as a shock to you, but I don't mean it necessarily in that way. He was a very gentle soul. He is still. He exists. But someone put it really well in one of the comments. They said something about Dan squaring up to death, and that encapsulates what I'm trying to say here. Dan took on death daily for the last 4 years, and did so with a positive attitude, not uniformly, but I never heard him complain. I would have been completely understandable, and that is not a standard I expect of anybody, but it's something that I think we can all relate to as far as what we want, the attitude we want to take in the face of great uncertainty and fear and anxiety and, frankly, death looming. So I don't know if I'm speaking for you there, but that's what I perceive. Death, where is thy sting? That's right, Tracy Holden. Listen, I'm reading your comments and your prayers, and I do want to tell you this. There have been a number of questions and comments on here about Dan as a agnostic or as a new agey type. And listen, he lives in Austin, Texas. This is not exactly the Bible Belt. Austin, Texas, the theme is keep Austin weird, right? And folks here take some pride in that. But he was raised in a somewhat of a Christian household. No offense to my parents, it was a bit chaotic. I appreciate all your compliments on the quality of his family, but from the inside, I know that we are and have been completely dysfunctional. I just want to put that out there and kind of give you the stiff arm on the idealization. It's like I'm not even going to even open that can of worms. Okay, I'm not. But I will say, God loves us, and God loves Dan, and Dan accepted Christ about a month ago and has repeated his acceptance to me, to my father. Like, he just wants us to know. I think he wants us to have our minds at ease. He wants folks who are worried about him to have their minds at ease. And I'm well aware that he has a lot of atheists and agnostic followers, or followers from different religions. And but the way he put it a few different times was, hey, I accept Pascal's wager. And so I want to put your minds at ease on that if you're worried about that. And I guess, if you're not worried about that, then it doesn't matter anyway, right? So another thing, and I see people commenting about their own struggles with cancer. I think that's that's probably honestly the biggest one, is people need some encouragement when they themselves or their loved ones are encountering the evil beast of cancer. And I see Anne Renaud, who's talking about her depression when her sister died 4.5 years ago of pancreatic cancer. And I think that that's what this community has been good for. It doesn't have that kind of happy ending that we might wish for, but it does have a happy ending. It doesn't have to be one eternal community based on one person. It can be one eternal community based on a sequence of lives well lived and shared and love given. This is just the nature of life. None of us lives forever. And so I think that we just pay it forward. And I guess that's what I was getting at when I said I feel a burden yesterday. Dan, I think, felt a burden in a good way for you as well. Let me look and see if I can see. So I found it. It's no accident each of us found this page. We all have learned so much watching your brother fight death. Yep. Dan would not have wanted politics or anything to stand in the way. Would not have wanted politics to stand in the way. Would not have wanted any side conversations. My mom, I've noticed at some point, I think, that there was some discussion about money, and she's like, let's demonetize this page, whatever. She took down the GoFundMe, or whatever it was that was up. Like, we don't want any of this, any of Dan's spirit in this to be sullied, tainted, misdirected, diluted. We don't want that. So politics, money, religion is pertinent, I guess, but the rest of it is not at all. Not at all. Prayers from Scandinavia. Am I staying until he passes? Well, that's an awkward question for me, because I am set to deploy to the Middle East here before long, and I'm new in my unit in the Army, and I need to prepare them. I have responsibilities to my unit to prepare them medically for deployment. I also need to prepare myself for deployment. Now, some things are fungible, some things are a little bit soft as far as timelines. I'm set to leave this evening. But I'll almost certainly be right back. It seems like. So, what else? It's hard on us here on earth for those who have passed or will be healed or free from pain and sorrow. Thank you for your prayers. Good luck on deployment. Yep, I don't mind deployments, but I hate being gone. Does that make sense? Anyway, I don't want to leave you guys because I don't really have a plan for the future of this channel. I told you I don't need followers on X, but I will endeavor to keep that place posted. My X channel, my Twitter. You probably won't agree with half of what I say on there, so I don't want it to be political. Doesn't have to be. Love you guys anyway. But if you want, you can check in there and see if I've posted any updates. And I guess that's where I'll leave it. So my Twitter X handle is Real Bachman, Real Bachman, Bockmann, and I'll keep you posted as best I can. Um, and again, that um, Google Drive where you can upload, if you're a friend of Dan, upload photographs, video that you want might want included in the memorial or just for reference. Bit.ly, bit.ly / Bachman, Bockmann. Love you guys. God bless you, Panda family. Talk to you later.